Okay, so this tutorial is looking at the blood flow throughout the body, including the heart. So what we'll start off with is the aorta. So that's the largest artery in the body. And so what will naturally happen is the aorta doesn't suit the microscopic level of the muscle, so we have to break that down into smaller and smaller blood vessels. So the blood will then travel to the arteries, through the arteries into arterioles. Now arterioles are mini arteries, and the arterioles will then drop it off at the capillaries. Now the capillaries have a special function. They sit within the muscle and they allow for oxygen to go in to the muscle and for the carbon dioxide to come out of the muscle. So the oxygen will be used in the aerobic process, and the carbon dioxide is the byproduct of the aerobic process, or the aerobic respiration. Now, what will happen then is once that diffusion has occurred, the capillaries will then send the deoxygenated blood on its way to the venules. So venules are little veins, and then venules will then send it to the veins. And again getting bigger, 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 because before it was getting smaller and smaller. Now we drop it off into the Vena Cava, and the Vena Cava will then send the blood on its way to the heart. So the right atrium and the right ventricle. I'm not including valves here, by the way, so please don't forget them when you study. And then the right ventricle will send it to the lungs. Now, the lungs also has arteries, arterioles, capillaries, etc. So now we are looking at arteries in the lungs and arterioles in the lungs. Now you can see that this is just exactly the same as the blood flow around the body, it's just in the lungs. But the actual constitution of the blood in terms of oxygen content is what is different. So in this case I'm writing in blue because there's a lot of carbon dioxide, not a lot of oxygen. So once it gets to arterioles, then it's capillaries. And the capillaries will allow for diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide at the lungs, at the alveoli. So what will happen here, again, carbon dioxide will be breathed out, so it will come out of the blood into the lungs and then expelled into the atmosphere. The oxygen that we've breathed in will go in through the alveoli and then diffuse into the blood in the capillaries. So all of a sudden what you've got now is fresh oxygenated blood, so it becomes bright red again. So now we need to make our way back to the heart and the aorta, if I've got enough room. So now we start back to the venules in the lungs, and then veins, then the pulmonary vein, we might have to go sideways here, left atrium, left ventricle, and then into the aorta. Now, if you were a clever cookie, you would have noticed that I missed one key blood vessel. And that key blood vessel is at the right ventricle. So to leave the right ventricle, we need quite a thick blood vessel, and that will be called the pulmonary artery, which you would have seen in the last tutorial. So that comes from the right ventricle to the arteries in the lungs. And there you have it. So the key thing that you need to remember is the colours that are on here first of all. So you've got the red, so the red signifies all the blood that has been oxygenated or high in oxygen. You've got the blue, which signifies the blood that is high in carbon dioxide or low in oxygen. And then you've got the capillaries, which are purple, because that's got a mix of both types of blood. So at the capillaries, you've got that mix because you've got carbon dioxide moving in one direction, you've got oxygen moving in the other, and everything just sort of jumbles up. The second thing you need to remember is the way the size of the blood vessels moves. So for example, the aorta is quite thick, you can feel that, you can touch that, whereas capillaries and arterioles, you can't really see or touch them because they're just so tiny. So it goes from big down to medium, small, mini, microscopic, and then back up that size again. So you always need to have the small size when you're either in the lungs or at the muscle site, and you have the big size when you're actually at the hearts. So that's it for the blood flow around the body.